We show up in the party. We show up in the party. We show up in the party. We show up in the party, fire than everybody.
We show up in the party, fire than everybody.
We show up in the party, fire than everybody.
We show up in the party.
We show up in the party.
So hello and welcome back to another video, and welcome to Wainstones Pools. Yes, we are way up north on this session. We are at Pitchers Lakes. I say we because I'm not here on my own. We have booked the lake exclusively and there's 3 of us here. I will introduce you to the other guys as the video progresses, but I'm here with my director Craig Aspen, and I'm also here with Mick Jukes. They are both from Horncastle Angling. Unfortunately, Cameron, my assistant over at One Stop, he drew on the short straw. Unfortunately, he has to stay back and keep that shop running, but we're here. It's a bit of a social session. We've got 5 nights ahead of us, and it's looking rather promising. Mark's been informing us that it's been fishing rather well of late. The fish have spawned already. It's the 14th of June now, and looking at the weather forecast conditions that we've got for the 5 nights that we're here, it's looking rather good. So it's a double thumbs up. I am itching to get them rods out, but you know, it's not an easy water, this place, at the best of times. These fish are very aware of angling presence and casting and things like that. It's a big no-no on here. You know, I think the baiting pole is going to be a big edge for me on this session, but we'll touch on that. We'll touch on what I'm going to be doing and things like that. Mark has informed us that pellet has been doing rather well, so I've brought plenty of pellet with me, more than what I actually need, but you know, it's better to have too much than not enough. So we are well equipped and looking forward to the session. I have been here once before, believe it or not. I have fished it as a guest before. I did 24 hours. I was supposed to stay for 48. I come one winter quite a few years ago now. I was probably going back probably about 8 or 9 years, I think it was. Totally different. Very, very weedy water back then, but Mark's treated the water since then, and at present, you know, there's hardly any weed. There's a little bit of low-lying weed on the bottom and things like that. There is a bit of a bloom going off at the minute, an algae bloom, so you know, concealing your lines is going to be quite hard. Might have to look at doing a bit of a washing line method, but in any case, it's definitely going to be slack lines. There is a few rules to take into account for this fishery as well, which you have to do. I mean, 0.40 diameter of line, so you know, it's a good strong line, that, but not only that, it does stick out like a sore thumb. But yes, that's one of the rules. Another thing is tubing, microbarb hooks only and things like that, and to be honest, it's pretty sensible rules. But the other thing is no floater fishing and no zig fishing, so it is predominantly going to be bait fishing. I will look out for any sort of opportunities where I can lower a rig in, but I'm certainly not going to be making any casts. I don't even think I'm going to be markering it out or anything like that, feeling the bottom. If anything, I'm just going to put my rigs where the fish are. That is my plan of attack, and looking at it, I think I'm going to use the baiting pole. I haven't brought my bait boat. You are allowed to use bait boats on here, but the other 2 guys, they're going to be using a bait boat, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I didn't fancy bringing my boat basically. I'm thinking it's quite a small intimate pool this. I should be able to reach everywhere with the bushwhacker, and not only that, I could just go and nick their extra sections if I need them. So yes, looking forward to a great session, and you know, it's going to be a good one no matter what. They're not going to be crawling up the lines, I don't think, but there's some absolutely stunning fish in here, and I cannot wait to catch a few to show you. Marcus handpicked a lot of these that are in here, and they are absolutely perfect. So yes, I am quite excited to get a few of them on the mat, let's put it that way. But anyway, I am waffling on. Everything is to do, everything is still on the barrier. I've got to get the house up. It looks like it's gonna rain at some point, so yes, wish me luck, and I shall see you once we're all sorted. Enjoy the video. Well, good evening, and I'm sitting here now feeling rather frustrated, if I'm being honest. It's been a grueling day for me. News around the lake though, it's starting to fish and there's fish in the vicinity, and this is why I'm feeling frustrated, to be honest. There's a lot of fish out in front of me. I've seen quite a bit of fizzing, but it's become quite apparent that, you know, there's a lot of weed on the bottom, a lot of low-lying weed, and in particular a lot of weed that's dying off, and it's creating me problems trying to present over it. Without actually leading up and, you know, and feeling for a spot. You just don't know what you're dropping over. If anything, you know, I don't do this type of fishing. That's part of the reason why I'm feeling frustrated as well, because I want to do things properly and I feel like I can't. Mick's had two fish. He's had an 11-pound common and he's had a lovely scaly 20, I think it was 22. Take a look at this.
Can't beat it. Gorgeous fish. Look at that.
Well done, mate.
Cheers, bud. Absolutely stunning. Great day so far. Love it.
Now yes, he's taken both them fish just off the back of the lily pads that's to the back end of my swim over here. He's fishing a swim in the corner. I think it's called corned beef, that corner, but he's actually fishing right over, fishing it to the other swim's water, so he can fish a clear spot that he knows of at the back of the pads there. And Craig, he's fishing in, I think it's called the view swim, which is down in the first corner which you come to when you approach the lake, and he's just had his first fish as well. He's just had a 17-pound mirror, and as you can imagine, me sitting here now, it's like Craig's just had a fish, Mick's had 2 fish, I've got a fish in front of me and I just can't pick a bite up. Feeling rather frustrated, and I have been ringing the changes, you know. I started off on bottom baits. Mark did originally tell us that the weeds all died off and it's quite clear, so I went out with my go-to take anywhere rig, fishing bottom baits. I had a hard-on hook bait on one of them and a cultured hook bait on the other. But I started noticing the fizzing around where I was fishing, thinking, why ain't I had a bite yet, you know. And I sort of let that dissipate and fizzle out, and then I went to reel in, and no sooner as I lifted up, it was just solid in weed. And when I brought the weed back, underneath it was just covered in silt, the lead had plugged in. So what I've done now is I've got 2 different rigs out at the moment. So yeah, I'm actually using 2 different approaches at the moment. But the first thing that I have done is I've dropped the lead size down. I've actually gone right down to 1.5 ounce lead. They're the smallest leads that I've got with me. Just so you know, I can present on top of the weed, and I've got 2 different presentations out there. I've got a Ronnie rig on one, and I've got a hinge stiff rig on the other, and I'm actually fishing a 12-inch boom, but it's a really supple section. It's actually armour linked, that, so it is really supple. It's not coated or anything like that. I've got one of the tungsten knot beads there on the knot, and then I'm just fishing a hinge on that. The chod filament section there is about 2-inch long, and I'm fishing the choddy claw hook. So yes, as you can imagine, that's got to present on top of that weed. I mean, they're feeding all around the spots at the moment, but I'm just not picking up a bite. My only concern is, are they approaching that with caution, because it's going to be sitting different to everything else that's out there. So that's the reason why I've gone out there with a Ronnie rig as well. And this one that I've put out there, it's an 8-inch boom. That is actually a coated boom. That's the skin link, but again, it's the same sort of presentation, but obviously that's going to be sitting a lot lower than the other one, and that's where I'm up to at the moment. I know I keep saying it, but it is starting to do my head in now, especially with the activity that I've seen out there. I mean, bait wise, we're all pretty much fishing the similar sort of baiting tactics. We're all putting in pellet, and we're all putting in the Scopex squid boilies. But they've had their bites on pink, but at the moment I've got one out on pink and I've got one out on white. I've actually got one out on a coconut cream, and I've actually got the other out on a citrus at the moment. But I have just been rooting through my bag and I found some Scopex squid in the washed out pink colour, so I'll probably change over to that. So yes, I don't know what if else going to happen through the night. Judging by the catch reports, looking at the pictures on Wainstones' Facebook page, most of the pictures all seem to be daytime pictures, so I'm not really sure what's going to happen tonight. But there's not as much fizzing out there as what there has been. It's part of the reason why I'm only speaking to you now, because I've been trying to work things out, you know. But the main thing is just keep everything low-key as possible. Apparently it's the kiss of death if you make a cast on here. I'm kind of kicking myself that I haven't brought my bait boat, because I could have actually used the echo on that to, you know, find the clearer areas. I mean, with the baiting pole, as good as the baiting pole is, you know, it's not as good as using the echo on the bait boat. But you know, I'll do my best. But that's what I'm doing so far. If push comes to it, I'm gonna have to find some spots. But I really don't want to ruin it for everyone else. That's the thing, you see. If I start making a few casts and then fish turn off, you know, it's not just going to ruin it for me, it's going to ruin it for Craig and Mick as well, and I don't want that to happen. So, gonna keep scratching my head, pulling my hair out, but hopefully we can get that first bite under our belt and then we can sort of work on it. But yes, not a happy Paul at the moment. Happy to be here. It is absolutely lovely, I will add. It is really nice being sat here right now. The lake is beautiful, the surroundings is really nice. It's really matured well, this place. The fish in here are absolutely stunning as well. So yes, I'm going to keep plugging away, but if nothing happens through the night, I shall have a catch up with you in the morning. So yes, it's goodbye from me for now. Well, usually when I flick the camera on, it's either with a fish or I'm saying good morning, but reality of that is not true at all. It is actually approaching late afternoon now. I've been sat here all day racking my brains, to be honest. As you can imagine, I was feeling really frustrated yesterday. Anyway, it's got the better of me today and I've broke the leading rod out about 2 hours ago. I got the leading rod out the car and I've found a spot. I have changed things today. I've now got one fishing over, which is this one here. It's fishing over on a washing line to that far margin, just because I've gone round there with the leading rod and just had a little feel in the margin basically. Didn't have to make any casts over there, and then I've plumbed it over there, got a nice washing line across, couple of handfuls of bait over that, and I'm now confident that I'm presented over that. And I've took them bloody Fandango rigs off, you know. I didn't really have much confidence in putting that out there, but we've seen that amount of activity that was out in that zone yesterday, and then not getting a bite. It's proper done my head in. But I was trying to think, you know, how can I get a rig out there without spooking them, you know, and actually be presented. But you know, in my head, the longer I've been sitting here thinking about it, it just must have been like waving a alarm signal, like, you know, don't take this one, it's abnormal to everything else. That's what's been going through my brain. But now I feel a lot more confident, especially on that rod that I found the spot with. It's fishing out in the zone where there was fizzing yesterday, and there's a lot of dying weed on the bottom there, and it is heavily silted in places, and it's really thick, gunky, horrible, stinking silt. But the spot that I found, it is still a silt spot, but it's clear, and it's just to the side of where all that rotten stuff is, where the fish have been actually fizzing. I mean, they obviously haven't got a problem feeding in it, but my problem is presenting in it. But now I feel a lot better. I've actually got pop-ups on both of them, just because they are still fishing in a little bit of silt. The one that I'm placing by hand over there, I've still got a 4-ounce lead on that, but the one that I'm dropping with a spoon, I've still got a 1.5-ounce lead on that. But yes, the Ronnie rigs, I'm fishing pink citrus on both of them, because pink's what's been doing the bite. I mean, things have changed overnight as well. Nothing has happened today for any of us. It's been a really quiet day. I mean, we've seen lots of fish, but they've just been basking up on the surface, very lethargic, not really doing anything. But just now I'm just starting to see the odd sign of the odd fish starting to tip down. But Craig did pick up another couple of fish, small fish at that though. I think a 12 and a 14 if I remember right off the top of my head, but he actually had them through the night. He had one sort of around 2ish in the morning, I believe. I didn't actually see the fish, but he has told me. Mick hasn't picked any more fish up. I'm quite surprised. I think in that lily pad rod that he had the 2 fish off yesterday, that's going to come into action at some point. He's definitely going to pick some more fish off of that, and Craig will definitely pick some more fish off that clear spot that he's got over there. I mean, if anything, I'm really confident for Craig picking up a few more fish off of that spot. But yes, at the moment I've made the disturbance. I feel a lot better for doing it. I don't care what anybody says, you know. I just couldn't sit here any longer and just feel like droppy hopey fishing. I just don't do that type of fishing. It's horrible. I just can't do it. So yes, now I feel a lot more better, and we're approaching this evening now. I think something will happen. If not this evening, then definitely in the morning for me. So everything is crossed, and I do apologise for not flicking the camera on sooner, but you know, I just had nothing inspirational to say, and when you feel like that, you know, it gets me down. It really does. I need something positive to relay back to you guys. But that is the state of the play. I'm sure we've all been there before, but yeah, it's done my head in. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a tough start for me, let's put it that way. But it's not over yet. I'm gonna give it my best. I've done what I think I needed to do, and we can only build on it from there. So yes, I'm gonna leave it there, and hopefully the next time you see me, it'll be with a fish. Fingers crossed.
I choose to think positively, no matter what's going on around me. I have a great life, and will continue to have a great life. Every breath I inhale, I feel confident.
Well, good morning. And that smile can only mean one thing. Yes, we've got a fish. I mean, it's not all victory because I lost the first bite. The washing line rod has produced 2 bites now. One just on dark last night. Got the bite, dropped back, and then it was solid as soon as I picked up the rod. I don't know what had happened, but this one come out completely fine. I ended up getting the boat though, going across, and it was just attached to a tree branch. So, you know, I hope it doesn't happen again, because if it does, we'll have to readjust things. But this one's going to be a bit lively because it's been in retainer for a little while now. I was just waiting for it to get light. I had it just before it got light, so there we go. Look, an angry 16.5 pounder that took a liking to the citrus, a 12mm. I actually increased the pellet over this rod, thinking, you know, it might help me a little bit. I've reduced the boilies and increased the pellet, and anyway, it's produced 2 bites. Carp 1, Paul 1. And there's the other side. I don't know if you can pick it up on the camera, but he's got some lovely little starburst scales down near the wrist of his tail. Actually looked a lot smaller when I landed it. I was thinking all this time for that little thing, but he's a good little fish really. I shouldn't knock it. Anyway, let's see if we can make another bite happen. The conditions are changing today. We've got some thunderstorms coming in, so it should make for a good day's fishing. So go tell Mummy and Daddy that Castelline's here to catch them. Well, good morning, and it's been a few hours now since I spoke to you. I didn't realise what time it actually was, but it was 4:30 when I was doing the pictures for that fish. So yeah, I sort of sat back, had a bit of porridge, and then got my head back down for a couple of hours. Kind of was expectant of another bite, if I'm being honest. But we're just gone 11 o'clock now, and as you can see, it is red as again, absolutely red hot. I do hope the weatherman is right, because he says we've got a bit of thunder coming in later on, overcast, and it could be potentially quite stormy for the next couple of days, which would really do us a favour on the fishing side of things, because when it's like this, them fish just rise up to the top, and you know, without being able to fish dog biscuits or zigs, the chance of a bite seems very, very slim. I mean, if anything, you know, if any rod is going to go off, I expect the washing line one to, just because, you know, it's only fishing in 2.5 foot of water over there on that margin. And they do pass up and down that margin, it's just whether or not they're going to tip up and have a little bit of a feed. But certainly I'm very hopeful for this evening. I mean, going back to yesterday evening, Mick was the first person to have a bite yesterday. Because all throughout the day, nothing at all, the fish was just on the top. And believe me, if you could have fished mixers, there was up for it, because Mick actually threw a couple of floating pellets in that he had in his bag, and they were straight on it. You know, it was a bit frustrating to watch that. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. So yeah, kicking it back to yesterday evening. It was just about getting dark, around 9:30, and Mick had a bite again off the back of the pads. He had a bit of an ordeal actually with that one, because it actually got stuck in the pads. He had to go out in the boat. I was cooking my tea at the time, but Craig was round there helping him. Anyway, I'd cooked my tea, sat there and ate it. And he was still out in the boat. It must have took him a good 45 minutes, but pleased to say that it resulted in a fish in the bottom of his net. Wasn't a very big fish. I think he said it was about 12 pound. But still, it's another fish, you know. It's renowned for being a hard water, this. Just because, you know, it's a small lake, and small lake syndrome, as I call it, they are very aware of your presence, which was, you know, half the reason why I didn't want to lead a spot. But given the bottom and the condition, you know, of the lake bed, I wished I'd have just done that to begin with, you know. But you've got to take on Mark's advice, you know. It's good advice that Mark gives you. I mean, when he said to us earlier that, you know, that there's no weed in the lake, I mean, from his perspective, you know, that is true, because it used to be a really weedy lake, this, and he's treated it and the weeds died off and things like that. But in places, especially in front of me, there's a lot of dying weed on the bottom. There is a bit of fresh stuff in with it as well, so I don't know if he has actually got a bit of fresh growth in there, or if it's still the stuff that's dying off. But it does make it, especially in the silty areas, there's some really heavily silted areas, it does make it, you know, seem extra smelly. It don't make you feel confident. And not only that, kicking it back to that first evening, the amount of fish activity out there and the fizzing that I had, and to not pick up a bite, it proper did my head in, that did, it really did. So yes, I do feel like I've got things working for me now. And then I was the next person to have a bite after that. But again, you know, big drop back, got on the rod, and just resistant straight away. It's like it picked it up and went straight into a snag. That's the only explanation I've got. I had no option but to go and get the boat, just in case the fish was still on. So I went across in the boat, and as you can imagine, when I got over there and the hook just popped out the branch, I thought, oh my God, it's done me. But yeah, that feeling then, you know, after trying and, you know, actually going against the grain and finding a spot and things like that. I know I didn't have to make any disturbance over there, but it felt like a lot of effort had gone into that bite, and then to lose it, yes, I was a little bit wounded. And to be honest, I didn't expect it to go through the night, that rod, because of the spot, you know, it's only a shallow spot in the margin. But now it has gone through the night, you know, hopefully it'll go again. Well, I say through the night, it was actually around about 3:30, I reckon. I mean, it starts getting light at about 3:15, so, you know, it's a bit deceiving at the moment. And then Craig had a bite around about 3:30 this morning as well. He had a lovely scaly 20-pounder. Proper nice fish when he showed me the picture of it. I'll see if I can get hold of that and overlay it now. Yeah, and I do believe Mick has lost another fish this morning. Well, I say another, I think that's the first fish he's actually lost. So, I mean, if we're looking at the tally and the stats, Craig's had 4 fish and lost 1. Mick's had 3 fish and lost 1. And I've had 1 and lost 1 now. But, you know, I kind of feel like there's still a good opportunity for me to sneak out a few more fish now. I'd love to get that open water spot rocking, I really would. But, you know, when we turned up, it was totally different conditions. I mean, part of me's in like two minds, you know. There was nobody fishing when we actually got here. I don't know how long it's been, you know, without anybody fishing it. So there was quite a bit of fizzing activity. But then again, it was the right conditions for them to be feeding in the daytime. It just seemed like everywhere you looked, there was a bit of fizzing here, a bit of fizzing there. And we haven't seen that since, you know. All yesterday there was no signs of fizzing in the daytime, and then even yesterday evening, going into the evening, there was no, like, you know, not like it was. There was like the odd sporadic bit of fizzing here and there, but, you know, touch wood, at least we've still got a couple of bites. And I do feel like it's going to be the same until we get some sort of change in the weather. But I have not long redone the rods, really. Just in the hope that I can pull something down onto the spots. I mean, the bait that I'm using, the Scopex squid and the pellet in there and that, I actually pre-soaked everything before I come, and then hydrated it in the spod syrup. So it is a real sticky monger. And then not only that, I've added a few pellets into the boilers as well, just so it stodges up a bit, you know, and gives something for the syrup to bite onto. You know, I mean, it hasn't totally softened the pellets off. They're a bit like a halibut pellet, the Scopex squid pellet. It takes quite a bit longer to break them down. I mean, if you wanted to break them down quite quickly, I'd recommend, you know, putting hot water on them and scalding them, and then draining it straight off, because you'd get a better effect that way. But really, I'm just using them as a carrier, really, to get that liquid down onto the lake bed. So yeah, I've gone out with a good hit of bait on this bait up, just because I think they're going to be sitting out there for quite some time. And not only that, I want to give myself the best option I can do with the leakage off the syrups and the oils and things that I've got in there. So yeah, that is the state of play. And I did take the bite. I did have the bites, both bites on the citrus, on the pink. But it's the same for all of us. We're all getting bites on the pink. We're all on the Scopex squid, actually. So yeah, it's just one of them. Just have to sit back, hope the weatherman's right, and I shall keep you posted. But as it stands at the moment, it's not looking great for a daytime bite. But you just never know. They're out there, the rods are sorted, we've got something working now. I feel like we can build on it. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there, because I do believe I've got some fish and chips on the way for dinner. Mick's just headed out now. He's popped to the shops just to stockpile, so to speak of. But he says he's going to pick some fish and chips up on his way back. So a bit of something nice to look forward to. And then hopefully it absolutely chucks it down and that thunder moves in. And the next time you see me, I'll be with another fish. But for now, I'm going to leave it there. Well, good evening, and as you can see, it's turning into a nice afternoon. Yeah, I don't know what time it is now, it must be around 8 o'clock time, but it's been another one of them days today. Absolutely blistering hot, and I'm sure it's hotter today than it was yesterday. But in saying that, there's not been as many fish on the surface today. But the fish that have been on the surface, they weren't even in the mood for anything today. I mean, Mick chucked a couple of floaters in just to see whether they'd come up, but they didn't come up for it. I mean, it's not like, you know, we had the intentions of fishing for them or anything, it's just to sort of gauge the reaction, if anything. But no, definitely one of them days. Again, none of us have had anything today. I mean, I kind of redid that washing line rod with the hopes that it might go off, you know, it's in that shallow water. And there has been activity over there, they've been getting in the reeds. I mean, the bush that I'm fishing, it's sort of between two reed beds. And they've been getting in them reeds, so it's just a matter of waiting for when they're willing to feed. But I'm feeling quite confident, to be fair, you know, especially for that washing line rod, just because of the amount of fish that I've seen over there today. Yeah, just waiting for that key time when they're going to switch on, but we're approaching it. I think yesterday the first bite was around about 9:30 time in the evening. Mick had the first bite off the pads, and then me second. That must have been around about 10 o'clock. So, and then it was early hours of the morning after that. Hopefully there's another couple of bites in it. I mean, today really we've just sort of been sat waiting around twiddling our thumbs. I mean, Mick did come back with a nice chippy though. We all had fish chips and mushy peas earlier. Had that and then come back to the bivvy and just sort of like laid there on the bed chair just baking. I opened the vents up on the back of the hide and just laid there and had a bit of a siesta for a bit. Got up, looked about. The one thing I did do though differently tonight is I did scatter a few baits in that open water zone. I'm thinking the whole time that I've been fishing out in that zone, you know, I've just been relying on the baiting pole, and I'm just thinking, you know, instead of one big pile of bait, you know, spreading it a little bit, just to sort of see if it would give me some sort of indication as well, you know, the odd fizz patch here and the fizz patch there, or maybe get them used to picking them up on the way in, you know, instead of just, they might even be approaching that patch with alarm bells for all I know. I mean, it definitely doesn't seem like that, it just seems like you're waiting for them to come across it, you're waiting for that key time when they're willing to feed. But you know, I just thought I'd do that just to see if I can gauge a bit of something that's different for it. I mean, I actually thought we had 5 nights, but we haven't. We've got 2 nights left. We've got tonight and tomorrow night. We're actually going home on Friday, so 4 nights in total. For some reason, I thought we had 5. So. But we did come up a day early and stopped in a B&B for a night, so technically it was 5 nights. But I'd really like one of them nice scalies that's in here. I'm not bothered about the amounts of fish or anything like that, but it'd be really nice to have a nice scaly, one of Mark's nice scaly fish. Oh, I've just seen a bit of fizzing coming up. It's a bit beyond the spot. Oh, that's a good sign. Just now starting to see the odd sign here and there to indicate that, you know, they're in a different mood and they're starting to feed a little bit. There's a bit coming off of the island as well at the moment. But yeah, when you're watching the fish swimming around, it's just obvious what they're doing, and now there's not as many fish swimming around on the surface. And another thing I've noticed today as well, the fish have been coming a lot closer into me. I mean, obviously I haven't made any disturbance today. I've put that rod out over there, and then I've pulled that rod out, and that's it really. Apart from firing a couple of baits in, that's it. And I try to stay off the boards as well instead of walking on the boards, because they do make quite a bit of racket that when you walk on them. So yes, we can only hope for a Carpus interruptus anytime soon. Oh, a bit of daylight would be nice, a daylight bite, that would be nice. I've been sat here with the head cam ready to go, and it's just not happening. All the bites seem to come when it's like too dark to blooming film anything. Very antisocial these carp are, that's what I'm saying. Well, anyway, I'm going to sit back, and now it's cooled down and you can actually sit out. It's nice to get out the bivvy instead of hiding in the shade. Enjoy a nice cup of tea and listen for one of them alarms going off. But if anything happens, you'll be the first to know about it. So cheers. Well, what a difference a day makes. Changing weather conditions and a completely different lake this morning. I'll be honest though, I was getting a bit worried that I was going to get a bite. Come 3 o'clock in the morning, still no bites between us all at that point. So when it went off at 3:30, I was like in disbelief. But we've got a nice one. He's gone £21.4, a lovely scaly as well. And there we go, look. He's a cracker. Just could do with a few more of him. Craig's bagging up this morning. He's had 2 this morning. Mick's had a good sleep, unfortunately. They're here in the swim at the moment, so I thought I'd take the Mickey. But he'll do for me. I hope we can get into a few more before we go. The conditions are certainly looking better. And this one's fell to a little pink again. Just keep repeating that process, but I'm a bit disappointed we haven't had a bite off that open water rod. And there has been fizzing out in that zone this morning, but a bit beyond it, it's like the fizz everywhere but your baited area. So I might just move that rod for tonight, just for the sake of it. And there's the other side. But one thing's for sure, this lake's not easy. They certainly make you work for it. Like all northern lakes really. The further down south you go, the easier it becomes and the bigger the fish. That's my opinion anyway. Anyway, let's slip this fella back and see if we can't make something else happen. Well, good morning. We're just about approaching 10 o'clock now, and boy does it feel much better today. just the fact that we've got a bit of cloud cover. I mean, I'm still sitting here in a t-shirt and it is rather warm, but by this time yesterday most of the carp was up on the surface, and it does feel like it's a lot better for a bite today. I mean, we're not really seeing much signs of them feeding, but we are seeing signs, which is a lot more than what we have seen for the past couple of days. It's very, very sporadic what we are seeing. With it being quite a silty lake this, you do see them when they're feeding, and you'll get like the odd patch of fizzes coming up here and there, but never over the baited areas. It does definitely seem like they're picking out the naturals. There's a hell of a lot of naturals in this lake. There's a lot of really big snails, and at the moment you've got tadpoles and things like that, and every bit of weed that you bring back in, it is just absolutely full of life. Freshwater shrimp, all sorts of caddis and lava in there. I mean, I don't know the names of them all, but it does look like a bit of a banquet when you bring them in. And you can imagine they get preoccupied on things like that. They've got no need to touch our baits, let's put it that way. But as I mentioned, you know, it's a tricky little lake this. It's not easy. You've really got to think about what you're doing. But I suppose really the one thing which I wish I'd have done different from the beginning is I wished I'd have led it out and found some spots. I really feel like I wasted that first night. You know, sort of dropping and hoping sort of thing. Well, that's how it feels anyway. I don't like fishing like that. But then again, I leaded that spot out and, you know, it just never happened for me. Even though I was confident in the spot, it's like they was quite willing to feed everywhere around it, but never over it. But it's definitely, you've got to be on them clear spots to be getting the bites. It's obvious, you know. I've got the only rod that I'm having bites on is my washing line rod, and I know it's clear over there because I've been over there and felt it. And Mick fishing next to the pads, you know, that's a clear spot, and the only way he's found that really is by dropping the lead with the boat and then having a little pull back. And really there was only really Craig that had a bit of a starting bonus on us, because he knew a spot from last time that he was here, so he had one clear spot to start with, and it paid off for him that. I mean, he's had 2 fish this morning. Mick's a little bit unfortunate not to pick up a fish, but it was ever so peculiar last night. We were sort of like anticipating this thunderstorm coming in, and it just didn't come in. I mean, at one point we was all stood round here at 11 o'clock, and it was still quite light by then. I don't mean light as in daylight, I mean it was a really light night, and the lake just seemed completely lifeless. So, you know, we all went to bed kind of a bit despondent really. But, you know, we stuck to our guns, reset the traps, did what we did. And I awoke, I think it was around about 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a little liner on the right hand rod, just a couple of bleeps, but that's what woke me up. And then I sat out and looked out across the lake, and at this point, you know, it was starting to get light. I noticed a bit of fizz here and there and how much the conditions had changed, but in particular, you know, it was raining at this point. It felt a lot more chilled. But even then, you know, you kind of expected more to happen. Expected to see more fizzing and things like that. So, you know, the fact that it was 3 o'clock in the morning and I hadn't had a bite, I was really, really disheartened at that point. But then it was only half an hour later and I had a bite. Craig had his bite. He had a bite at 3 o'clock in the morning and 5 o'clock in the morning. And mine was around about 3:30, 4ish. So, you know, a very short window again. And then this morning, even though we've been seeing quite a bit of fizzing this morning, it just hasn't materialised. And one thing that is sort of lingering in the back of my brain is it could be to do with line lay more than anything, you know. They're very, very aware of your presence, and Yeah, I think they don't like bumping into the lines, or they stand out the lines at the moment. There's a really bad algae bloom on, and it does make your lines stand out like a sore thumb at the moment. Because it does seem to be like when we're getting the bites, it's when them light conditions change. I mean, going back to the first night when we was on, the bites sort of started around 5:30. And again, that was when the light level started to change, because it was overcast all day, and then around 5:30, 6 o'clock-ish, you know, it did drop quite dark, so we had some real thick cloud cover come over. But that's one thing that's sort of going through my brain. But, you know, if you are thinking of coming here and that, you know, it's worth taking into account, you know. Don't worry about what people say, you know. Get a spot found. Feel like you're fishing. Certainly that's where I feel like I've gone wrong. I really don't feel like it's been a success this session, not at all. I think it's been very, very hard going, and I don't think I've quite got it right. Yeah, we've got one rod working right, but I wish I'd have done that from the beginning and all. I mean, looking out across over the bay there, you can see that green tree at the back there. There is a big clear area there. It's a known clear area, that. So that's one worth marking down if you are coming here. But where I'm fishing the washing line, if I just pan round a little bit. So basically when I'm casting out, I'm aiming for that gap there, and I'm actually placing a rod just in front of here. It is silt, but it's nice and clear. But I had a donk about in front of them reeds, and I had a donk about there, and a donk about there, and it just started to clear over that area there. Oh, just let it focus back in. Sorry about that. Yeah, it does start to clear on that area over there. But all across here, it's really, really thick silt, apart from in front of here. You can tell it's a known spot what people fish. I mean, it's obvious as well, because like you can see where people have been walking in and out the gap where I'm casting to. And then panning over to the lily pads. If you was fishing that swim over there and you're bringing it over to these pads here, the back pads, there's a clear spot on the other side of that. But when I was poling out, you know, I was noticing it is quite clear if you go right close to the pads there as well. I'll pan round again. I've reset the right hand rod. I've sort of lost confidence in that spot now, even though there's still the odd fish getting in that area. But I've dropped one right in this cove bit here. I have noticed a bit of fizzing here and there, and especially running into the afternoon, you usually see one show there at least. But where the fish have been fizzing quite a lot this morning, and still are fizzing at the moment, there's some lily pads here, and it's sort of on that bend. That's where Craig's fishing at the minute. Yeah, there's a lot of activity in that area. Even whilst I've been talking to you, there's been a bit of fizz coming up there. And bait wise, you know, we've been putting in quite a bit of pellet. They seem to be responding to the pellet quite well. That's what Mark feeds them. He says he basically just feeds them pellets these days. He don't feed them any boilie. So we've all been putting pellet in. And then hook bait wise, it doesn't seem to matter what it is, as long as it's a washed out pink colour. I mean, Mick's having a little bit of an experiment on one rod at the minute. He's put a washed out yellow on. But I did try orange hook bait, not for long, but I did try orange hook bait. But originally, you know, when I first set about my business, I had the cultured on and the hard ons, you know, bottom baits, thinking that was going to be the way forward. But little did I know about the weed situation on the bottom. As soon as I realised that, you know, the pop-ups come out, change the rigs, and you know, all the bites that I have had have been on Ronnie rig. I've got a lot of confidence in them claw hooks at the moment. I'm really liking that pattern. I mean, I'm not just saying that because I'm with Nash. I mean, even beforehand I was still using the claws, but it's like my go-tos was either the quarter wide gapes or the pinpoint claw. I just like a really fine gauge hook, really. And it's the same no matter where I go. If there's no weed in the water, then I'll use the finest gauge hook I can possibly get away with. You know, I think it always stands you in good stead for picking up more bites, you know, converting more takes. But yeah, both of them fish was absolutely nailed. That's the point I was trying to get to. One was nailed in the bottom lip and the other one was nailed just in the scissors. And that 20 that I had this morning, it was ever so funny. I mean, the rod went off. I was up at this point anyway. It was just a case of slipping the Crocs on, running down to the rod. And I picked up the rod and I was winding, and I was starting to think that the rod had just been sprung, and I was reeling into nothing, and I eventually connected into him, and by this time he was halfway across the pond. And then when I did connect into him, he absolutely set off on a right belter. He took about 20 yards on that run. Yeah, it was a really enjoyable fight, and then to slip him in the net and see that he was one of the better ones, yeah, I was quite pleased about that. Especially when I was sat there thinking that my chance had gone, had blown it, sort of thing. So yes, that's the state of affairs. I think today, with it being a bit cooler, you know, the rods are reset now, they're both fishing. I think a siesta is on the cards because we're all sort of feeling it. It's been very unsociable with the bite times. We've been sort of staying up late, expecting a night bite into the night sort of thing. But then it's all been like early hours of the morning. Oh, I've just seen the lily pads twitching over in that cove over there where I'm fishing. That's a good sign. So yes, I think a little siesta is on the cards, and just keep my eyes peeled in the meantime. Yes, and hopefully this afternoon we might have a bit of something to report on. I think we'll be very unlucky if we don't have a bite between us this afternoon. And it would be nice to get something going in the daytime, and then at least I can get round and get a bit of video, you know. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there, and I shall speak to you in a bit. Yeah, what do you say? Good. I'm trying to be positive about it. Well, this isn't the evening update I expected to be relaying back to you at the moment, but as it stands, everything is packed up and we're about ready to go home. We thought our fishing was Monday to Friday, but it turns out Mark's changed the booking times. It's actually now Monday to Thursday. So we were sitting here thinking we've got all the time in the world. We was going to order pizza, had everything planned. It was looking really good for a bite as well. The sun did break through today, which made it rather tricky, but it was looking really good for a bite now. But that is the state of play. I do hope you've enjoyed this video and it's given you a good insight into Wainstones Pool. You know, it's not to be sniffed at, this place. I'd recommend it to anybody who fancies it. But as for me, where I'm concerned, you know, that is me done. It's a long journey home now, back down to good old Doncaster, Retford area. So yes, if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe and I shall see you on the next one. It's gonna be Rosemere.